Hello again, everyone, and welcome to my channel where I show you how to navigate a Jewish divorce. For those of you who are here for the first time, this is the right place to discover the pertinent facts you need to know about how to go about protecting your halachic rights as they pertain to matters of Jewish divorce. What you will see and hear on this channel are things that really should be said by rabbis, teachers, dayanim, and other Jewish leaders. But since these things are usually swept under the rug, I found it necessary to create this forum in order to bring attention to these issues. In today's video, I will touch upon the problem of what is the status of a person who performs a mitzvah while simultaneously being engaged in an Aveirah or sinful behavior. I am sure that most of you are familiar with the story of Robin Hood. This well-known archer and woodsman in English lore is famous for stealing from the rich and giving to the poor. While it is definitely a quaint story, I'm here to tell you in Judaism this type of behavior is absolutely frowned upon. Stealing is never allowed, no matter what the excuse. To show you what I mean by this, let us take an example from the holiday of Sukkot. In order to celebrate the festival correctly, a Jewish male needs to acquire the arba minim, or 4 species, that are delineated in the Torah. These items consist of a lulav, an esrog, 3 hadassim, and 2 aravis. Here is not exactly the place to get into the specifics of what these items actually are. Suffice it to say that it is incumbent upon each person to obtain these items for himself in order to celebrate the holiday correctly. Now, suppose that this person found himself unable to obtain these things by lawful means, such as by paying for them or even receiving them as a gift. As a result, he felt compelled to steal them and to fulfill his duty that way. What do you think our friend Robin Hood would say about this lulav thief? After all, the guy might have committed his larceny out of desperation. Shouldn't he be considered a saint for doing all that he could, including stooping all the way down to the level of petty thief in order to perform this good deed? What do you think? Does the lulav thief satisfy his mitzvah obligation in this manner? I will now give you the answer as found in Jewish sources. The Mishnah in Sukkah, Perek Gimel, states unequivocally that a stolen lulav is disqualified from use. But then the Gemara in Sukkah, Chav Tes Amud Beis 29b, wonders, maybe this is only true on the first day of the holiday, where the pasuk uses the word lochem, implying that the lulav must be yours on the day only. Maybe on the second day of the holiday, a stolen lulav would be allowed, because for the second day it doesn't say the word lochem anymore. The Gemara then answers, and I quote, Omer Rabbi Yochanan mishum Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, mishum dehavale mitzvah haba ba'Aveirah. Rabbi Yochanan, in the name of Rashbi, says that it is considered as performing a mitzvah at the same time as engaging in an Aveirah, which renders the mitzvah null and void. In other words, it is a case of a sin canceling out a mitzvah. To give another example of this, let us say that someone decides to drive his car on Shabbos in order to go to the synagogue and pray. While praying is definitely a mitzvah, driving a car on Shabbos is most certainly an Aveirah. If a person finds himself in a situation where the only way to get to the synagogue or shul on Shabbos is by driving there, he's much better off simply davening at home. Sadly enough, though, I have heard of quite a few Orthodox rabbis who are well aware of this problem that is plaguing their synagogues, and yet they fail to do any rebuking of their congregants due to the fear of losing membership and all the donations that come along with it. You can surely imagine how I feel about such rabbis. Unless you think I'm willing to pick on petty thieves and rabbis only, well, you would be wrong about that. Take the example of a doctor who's in the middle of performing a complicated life-saving procedure. Suddenly the doctor realizes that the time has come to say the Kriya Shema prayer, and if he doesn't stop and take a break from his work to say this prayer, the time for the mitzvah will have passed. In this case, it is patently obvious that the doctor should continue to perform this procedure, especially if there is no one else capable of taking over the reins. That is because, again, allowing a patient to die in order for the doctor to be able to say his prayers on time is another example of a mitzvah haba ba'Aveirah. We see from all the above that the performance of a mitzvah has its own unique parameters That is because even a good deed has its limitations as to how and when it can be accomplished. For if not so, a perfectly good mitzvah can easily be transformed into a horrible sin. Now imagine that you just walked into a synagogue on Sukkot and you see a very holy looking man dressed in fine religious garb. He's holding the finest looking set of arbas minim that you've ever seen. While he's shaking that lulav with the most intense devotion, you begin to think to yourself, wow, what a holy rabbi this person is. He's so deep in meditation, performing the nanuim of this mitzvah so meticulously. But wait, what if I told you that his arba minim set was stolen? All you'd be left with then is a petty thief who has not fulfilled the mitzvah of lulav and esrog at all. And not only that, Hashem despises all of this man's thoughts and prayers that come along with the shaking movements of his lulav. Now imagine that you're in the ICU wing of a hospital and you see the respectable looking physician in the middle of performing a vital life-saving procedure. The patient is acutely ill, hemodynamically unstable, and no one is sure if he will make it. The physician suddenly glances at his watch, drops everything, and rushes to a side room to don his talis and tefillin in preparation for saying the Shema prayer. Can you imagine even one sane person who would see this chain of events and remark, my, what a righteous person this doctor is. He's so devoted to the mitzvah of saying the Shema prayer on time. Well, it should be obvious by now that this doctor is nothing but a terrible sinner. So now that we understand this concept of mitzvah haba be'aveirah, it is time for us to come face to face with what I consider to be one of the most egregious examples of this rule. It should come as no surprise to you that yet again, it is about divorce. And here is why I say that divorce is the worst example of the above rule. Whereas all of the other examples I mentioned at least have a mitzvah as a component in addition to the sinful part, yet when it comes to the frivolous divorce, there is no mitzvah. It is all one big sin disguised as a mitzvah. Now I will explain what I mean by that. As you know, nowadays we have rabbis and dayanim who are either complete ignoramuses in matters of divorce or worse. They are hopelessly corrupt. In their quest to free an aguna or halachically chained woman, they lure the husband into their den of iniquity, which they call a bezdin. Then they make him sign a fraudulent arbitration agreement which gives these rabbis unlimited power to impose upon a man an outrageous financial judgment, which is then enforced in civil court and only benefits the wife. The rabbis encourage the wife to lie and exaggerate the perceived abuse she was allegedly subjected to. Next, they use the man's alienated children as bargaining chips to extract even more assets out of him. Finally, they use all of this pressure to force the husband to give his wife a Gett so that they will be Jewishly divorced. And by means of receiving her Gett, she is seemingly permitted to remarry. Now, on the face of it, this would seem to be another case of mitzvah haba be'aveirah, because it involves the granting of a Gett through a multitude of sins, including losigzo, moitzi shemra, ivus adin, and eshes ish, among many others. This would be a fair assessment. But what if I told you that forcing a Gett in this matter is not even a mitzvah, but it's actually an Aveirah? For more on this subject, click the channel icon to reveal the playlist button, and then click on one of my refutation series videos, beginning with part 1. I go into all of the details about the problems with forced Gittin in those videos. So yes, these rabbinic frauds think that they are performing a mitzvah for the woman by acquiring for her a Gett by force, but the means they use to accomplish this are clearly against halacha, making this mitzvah into a very sinful Aveirah. So while the rabbi who stole the lulav only committed the sin of theft, which he can and must overturn by making financial restitution to its rightful owner, the rabbi who coerces a Gett, however, is an entirely different category of disgrace. Having already committed a gaggle of sins such as enabling slander and allowing the woman to use the secular courts, all in violation of halacha, the rabbi not only issued the woman an invalid Gett, but he then becomes an accessory to every single sin that this woman will later commit due to his terrible actions. This includes every forbidden encounter she will ever have with a man, including her second husband. And worst of all is the eternal blemish of mamzer, which will be attached to any of her future offspring. So even if this woman finally wakes up and realizes that her get was invalid, she will now need to have 2 gittin written up, one from the second husband and another from the first. So now, this rabbi who presided over the original get is also a thief, in addition to being an accessory to all of the woman's adulterous activities. That is because he defrauded her of the money she paid him in order to obtain the invalid get. So as you can see in the Torah, hardly anything is one-dimensional. Rather, one must study the Shulchan Aruch very carefully in order to familiarize himself with how to perform the mitzvah in the correct manner. One must even know when and how he's exempt or even forbidden from performing a mitzvah. I have therefore made it my mission to make the public aware of the false propaganda spread by the gangster rabbis that their unscrupulous divorce methods are somehow being used to perform a mitzvah in the Torah. That is just a lie that they always tell in order to cover up their sinful behavior. So if you came here because you unfortunately found yourself staring at the business end of a shady divorce on demand deal, here is my advice to you today. I am all in favor of you giving a get to your wife if she requests one from you. Not because halacha obligates you to give it. Most often it doesn't. But the point of the matter is, why would you want to have an enemy living together with you in the same house? The only thing is to make sure that the entire get process is done in strict accordance with halacha. But if your wife decides to violate the Torah by using the long arm of the civil court to strip you of all your halachic rights, then this mitzvah has just turned into a mitzvah haba ba'Aveirah, and it is therefore a sin. So remain strong and proud, my friends. During the season as we count to Omer, remember to stand tall and resolute as our forefathers did when they anticipated the great day when the true Torah ideals would be handed down to them from Moshe at Har Sinai. Thank you for watching, and see you all in the next video.